call the Boothbay Selectmen's meeting to order. First on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now, before we get started, being 9/11, I'd like to have a moment of silence for the victims of 9/11. Okay, public comment, first public comment. That makes it easy.
Yeah.
Next up is approve the minutes of the previous meeting from 8/28/2013.
So moved.
Second. Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I sent Jim a correction,
Yeah.
and I did find one other one after I sent it. In the next paragraph, I think it's paragraph 8 of old business, Douglas's first name is spelled
How could that be?
Yeah, I know.
I did get a kick out of the
Yeah.
harbor master plan.
As many times as we say,
Well, how
oh
about Joe
Douglas,
Burnham?
how come we spell your name?
Joe Burnham. So in other words, you're loaded. We call him Joe Burnham.
Joe Burnham.
So you made the correction, I assume?
Got it.
So the motion's been made and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor with them corrected as amended? Next up is reports. Jim?
First, under reports is the special town meeting schedule. We were doing legal review on ordinance changes, and then other things that we're going to discuss here shortly in this meeting. It became very apparent that we're going to push all of the deadlines to meet special town meeting to the very, very end. So Sally and I put together this reverse timeline. It's not the first reverse timeline that we've done for this special town meeting, but it needs to be adhered to a T. And we've let the planning board leaders know this. We're letting the selectmen know this now. I think the selectmen's role in maintaining the special town meeting is a little bit easier than the planning boards. But all of the notices need to go out on time. All of the public hearings need to happen on time. Otherwise, the 4 questions that we're going to present are in jeopardy. So we just wanted to re-emphasize that. We think we've ironed out all the kinks, especially with our executive session that we had earlier today. I think we've ironed out all the kinks. I think we're ready to go to the people with these questions, but it's imperative that we meet the timeline. Any questions? We had goals and objectives, a workshop for goals and objectives scheduled for 6 o'clock today. Obviously, anybody that showed up to the meeting found the door was closed and we were in executive session. We canceled the goals and objectives workshop. We'll have that again in the future. I know that's like a half a dozen times of canceling the goals and objectives workshop. But as you'll see, as the meeting progresses, we've had quite a few important things to take care of, and goals and objectives will have to come later.
It is kind of a goal and
Yeah.
objective.
Well, it's part of it.
They've definitely become objectives, yes. Continuing on reports, Comprehensive Planning Committee. I keep giving you a snippet of information in regards to the work that they're doing. Based on the public forum that we had with 60 people, 50, 60 people showed up in the really hot sweltering heat. We revised the vision a lot. I gave you that revision and showed you how much work and with the cross-outs and the additions. And I'm just trying to demonstrate to you how thorough the Comprehensive Planning Committee is trying to be with the vision. Additionally, they've also been working on finishing up the inventory sections. And really, they're going to get to the meat of the matter, which is coming up with land use policies, which will then drive the zoning ordinance. So all of this has been, well, I don't know if we call it inventory fun, but it's gotten us to a point where now we can start putting on our thinking caps, and the 13-member committee will start coming up with how do we use this stuff to create a plan for the future. Chuck, you're the chairman of the Comprehensive Planning Committee. Do you have anything to add?
I'd say you covered it very well.
Department head reports. Any questions on the comprehensive planning committee? So we had a department head meeting earlier today. We have missed quite a few of them recently, so this was good to get back on track. Public Works, they're shouldering the new pavement on East Side Road. I'm not sure if you guys have gotten over there yet, but Crooker did a great job. Absolutely beautiful. We do want to caution people until the shouldering is complete and you're driving on that road. It's a very narrow road, and without the shoulder there, it seems like it's more narrow. It's not, it just seems like it. So just drive cautiously. You know, that edge of the road is soft, and it's going to be that way until it stands up. But they should be done probably by the end of the week. Aprons for anybody that has a driveway on that road will be completed probably within the next 2 weeks. Most likely sooner. We just want to give a reasonable amount of time frame. We want to give a lot of credit to the people that live on Butters Island. They were really receptive. They handled the traffic problems really well. We know that it wasn't convenient. There's no other way to get around out there. But in return, they have a really beautiful road. And now all of Butters Island is actually pretty passable. There was a stranded boat on Murray Hill this weekend. I'm not sure if anybody ran into that issue. It ended up becoming a public works issue. The harbor master notified us that it was there. It was apparently sunk in Boothbay Harbor and ended up all the way over in Boothbay. But Public Works took it up, put it to the side. We're contacting the boat owner, and hopefully we can get them to settle up with the town, and hopefully we can get that boat back to them. In code enforcement, they've been extremely busy. Obviously, the ordinance review has been taxing. I think I've heard every planner and every code enforcement officer say they can't wait until this is done. Additionally, they have 7 building permits in review right now, 6 just recently processed, and 5 septic permits. And I don't know if you noticed, but Lori's been on vacation, so Dan's been holding it all up. But extremely busy trying to wrap up the summer building season. In an assessing, he's finishing up all of the final repair work on commitment. You know, you hear the concerns about places that we've made mistakes in the commitment, and the assessor is fixing those. And as soon as he's done, which I think he is pretty close, I mean, one pops up here and there, the mapping project goes underway. So that we'll start to see some of the fruits of that labor. The business office, as I reported last time, did really well with tax collections. They're still spilling in slightly. Moorings are done. And now we're gearing up for the November 5th election, in which there'll be 5 state questions and 4 municipal questions. So now we're gearing up for that. And with the new voting machine, the new ballot machine, there's a little bit of extra work this time because we've got to train on it. We've got to print ballots a little bit differently. Nothing that the voters need to concern themselves with, but it's kind of it's our deal. That's all I have for reports.
Any questions? Old business, I see we have none, which is a good thing. New business, standing committee vacancies.
We met last night. Douglas, Chuck, Fran, and Alan Bellows met and interviewed 4 candidates for planning board vacancies. We have approximately 3 more interviews to do. We're not ready to make any recommendations at this time.
You guys have more to do, I assume?
Yeah.
With that, we actually have a resignation to accept.
Oh, I thought it was on the. Is that why you asked me if there's an agenda change?
No,
Oh, my fault.
I just happened to notice that one, Jim, so.
No, my fault. It came at the 11th hour. I think I'd already put out the agenda. So that's probably a great place to do that. So I gave you an email sent to me from Nell Tharp stating that she's been unable to keep up with the pace. You know, she's working out of town right now. Really enjoyed it, but she said that she would like to resign from the planning board, but she said she will continue to serve until the new members are in place, which is helpful.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Nell's resignation with regret and thank her for her years of service on the planning board.
Second.
I have a question. If you accept her
Yeah,
resignation.
I was gonna ask the same question.
Will she be able to continue to
I don't
be on the
know.
planning board
I
as
don't
a
know.
member until
We'll
vacancies
we'll
are
have to
filled?
put, we'll have to, until we appoint a replacement.
I don't know if we
Accept
can
the
accept,
resignation.
yeah, I don't think we can.
You can accept her resignation as stated when you replace her.
Yeah,
when she-
It's no different than what we did with one of the appointees who said that she'd take care of one meeting and then we'd replace, I think it was Pam Rimmel.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So if you accept her resignation as written, it would be my understanding
Yeah.
that she'll serve until we appoint
As
a
written,
replacement.
yeah.
Right.
As written with regret, thank her for her years of service to the town.
Take it seriously, I like that. Okay, all those,
Seconded it, Doug or
Steve.
Steve?
all those in favor? One question I have just on the standing committee. So there's gonna be 4 openings total? On the
Four
planning-
openings on the
So
planning
do
board.
we, maybe I'm ignorant to this, but do we appoint the 2 alternates and the 2 fulls, or do they determine that? You know what I mean?
What we would end up doing is we'll end up appointing 4 people, 3 to 3-year terms, and 1 to finish out Nell's term, which is approximately a year. We'd leave it up to the planning board to decide which of those 2 would be the
Oh,
alternates,
really? I
and which
thought
would
we
be
did.
2 full
Okay.
members.
I just
And will
assumed
those appointments be done by next selectmen meeting?
at next selectmen's meeting, is what I would hope we would, right?
As long as we have all of the interviews
Right.
conducted.
You've got
Like
one.
Jim said, there's at least 3 more.
Okay, but hopefully they'll be done in 2 weeks, I would.
Well, we got
Hopefully.
4, there's 4 altogether. Interviews we got to do. The one guy didn't show up. And there's 3.
Right, I think Jim was
and- and
including-
Three on the list.
The reality of it is, I think at
I
next
said 3
selectmen's,
because I talked to Joe Pete today and he's not available.
at next
Okay,
selectmen's meeting, I
okay.
think we gotta at least do a couple of them, only because right now they only have 4 members.
Yep.
Right, no, we're hoping to have everything wrapped up so that we can make
Yeah.
recommendations on 4.
Cool.
2 weeks.
To summarize the meeting interviews, is they interviewed 4 people last night and they all went really well. I don't think it's gonna be a problem for that group to make a recommendation to the board to appoint those 4 people at the next meeting. If anything, it'll be who's better than who. I mean, they're all really good candidates.
Do we have any more besides planning board,
Yes.
Board of Appeals or anything? Because I mean, have any of them expressed any interest in doing other?
We're asking all of the candidates to come in if they're interested in other standing committees because Board of Assessment Review has vacancies as well.
MMA annual meeting voting credentials?
So has their annual meeting at the same time as the MMA convention. The town is a member of MMA. Sorry, I didn't realize it would come on so fast. The town as a member of MMA has a vote, 1 vote. You have to designate who will submit your vote. Last year, you designated me because I went to the meeting. As I put in your memo, I will be there as the MMA Executive Committee member if you so choose to designate me again.
Would it be appropriate where you're going to be on the MMA committee to have our vote too, or should it, I mean, the only reason why I ask is Tracy and Bonnie both go to that too, correct? So would it be appropriate for you to have that if you're gonna be on the MMA executive committee?
Don't get a vote as an MMA Executive Committee member.
But you're setting the policies, correct? That you're voting on?
So the only thing that's going to be voted upon is a change to the bylaws and the governance, and I put that in your packet. And it's essentially to cover instances that happened this last year where the vice president was not re-elected to his spot on his town. So then they ended up with no vice president to take the presidency. So they've made a condition in order to fix that in the future. That's the only thing to vote on. The MMA Executive Committee, prior to me coming on, recommended this to the members.
I mean, this year I don't see an issue, but I guess more going forward in the coming years, I just wonder if we shouldn't give that voting right, just to like Tracy, where she goes automatically. Because this year you're just going on, so it's not a big deal, but I think maybe next year we ought to at least look at it.
Sure.
I have a motion and
So moved.
Is our voting member for MMA?
Second. First and second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? It's a vote. Now, Jim, I hope you ate throat lozenge, because now comes special town meeting. I think you're gonna be talking for a little while.
Sure enough.
This is why we, just a little bit of history, this is why we've been having our executive sessions, so. Well, and we had one other one before.
So the special town meeting warrant as written, that we essentially consensusly decided to put forward, is up there with the yellow sticky on it. And let me go, and it's also in your packets. I'll give you my copy of the okay?
Is this gonna be the official copy?
Yes, that's gonna be the original copy. What I'm reading from has a couple of markups on it. So the town is gonna put forward 4, well, technically 5 questions for special town meeting. The first being to choose a moderator to preside at the meeting. Now, the next 4 questions are very, very complicated, and they're gonna be very confusing to the public. They're ones that we hope to educate people on in the next few weeks. Hopefully by the time people get to the polls on November 5th, that they've understood these articles. Because as you can see, Article 2 is about a whole page of paper.
Hey, Jim, can I interrupt you? Just, do you have any copies of this for
I can make copies of
Dan,
this.
maybe? Take mine? Actually, take that. It's not-
So I'm going to read Article 2 and then I'm going to explain it. Article 2 is to vote by secret ballot on the following referendum question. All of these will be referendum. You'll walk into the poll, you vote yes or no. The question is to see if the town will vote to designate the municipal development and tax increment financing district number 3 and adopt the development program for the district, such designation and adoption to be the terms and provisions of the municipal development and tax increment financing district number 3, Boothbay Village and Industrial Park Development Program. The development program as has been on file in the town clerk's office, a copy of which is incorporated herein by reference to make the findings set forth in the development program, to adopt the financial plan, including the percentage of the increased assessed value of said district to be retained as captured assessed value in accordance with the development program, to submit to the state of Maine Commissioner of Economic Development and Community Development for approval of such application and further documentation as may be necessary and appropriate for the final improvement and establishment of the district and development program financial plan according to 30A MRSA Chapter 206. Now I could go on to the rest of this, but you're going to see it's gibberish, legal gibberish. Let me explain what that question is asking. When we found out that the country club was going to do a major development, we immediately recognized that that was going to be an increase in the value of that property. And we quickly tried to get involved in what kind of development they were going to be doing and associate the town in a leveraged position to use it to the best of our ability. What the selectmen have decided now to do is create a tax increment financing district. That's going to be able to do quite a few things for the town of Boothbay, and I put together this slideshow presentation to tell you what a tax increment financing district is. But it wouldn't be fair because some of this refers to question 2, and question 2 is essentially to see if the town will vote to authorize the issuance of a general obligation bond.
Question 3.
Question 3, I'm sorry. Question 3, I already messed up. In a principal amount not to exceed $2,500,000. So we're asking the town to create a tax increment financing district, and then we're asking the town to take out a $2.5 million bond, which will then be paid for by the tax increment finance district. Let me explain. So obviously Articles 2 and 3 go very well together. Tax increment financing is a public economic development financing program funded by property taxes on incremental new value. So what we're saying is there's new value created and we're going to draw an imaginary line about it. I put Washburn and Dowdy there because that's one of our TIF districts. Washburn and Dowdy is in TIF district number 2. Now you use this to create targeted locations and targeted industries to create economic development. Why is a TIF used? To stimulate private sector investment, job creation, in those targeted industries and locations. Now, why does it make sense for us to talk about creating a TIF district on somebody that's going to locate and build their business in Boothbay no matter what? Because we know the Boothbay Harbor Country Club is going there no matter what we do. And that's the last point on this slide, is it shelters us against the adverse adjustments to state subsidies and county taxes based on total valuation. When the state is trying to figure out how much municipal revenue sharing they give us, they figure it out by the value of the town. When Lincoln County figures out how much taxes we're going to pay, they figure it out by the value of the town. When the state of Maine tries to figure out how much we get in school subsidy, they figure it out by the valuation of the town. Another reason to use TIFs is job creation, and that's our other TIF district, Hodgson Yachts, TIF district number 1. So the way the TIF works is new investment goes in, real estate value goes up. As a result, these state subsidies go down and county taxes go up. And that's a negative effect of new value. The TIF will shelter the captured new value, excluding it from those calculations for the lifetime of the TIF. So what we're saying is this new money that's going to be put in our town, no matter what, we're taking it out of those formulas that would negatively affect us. Now, how does a TIF work? A municipality essentially comes up with a geographic area that they call the Municipal Development Tax Increment Financing District. The law gives you a lot of leniency in how you develop this, and you're going to see the way we put it together is pretty neat. This freezes the value of the district at what they're going to call the original assessed value, and you'll see us refer to as an OAV. So all of the original assessed value gets taxed and goes into one pot, the general fund. The new value goes into a TIF revenue pot. The municipality adopts a development program describing what they can do with this new revenue. So it's all listed in the development program. This is how we go through the approval process. I think I can speak for the selectmen, is that we apologize that this is the first time we're going to talk about it, but we're up against the gun when it comes to timeline. Ideally, we would have wanted to have some public conversation about this leading up. Our public conversation is going to happen after tonight as we prepare for November 5th. But the TIF program gets built. We come up with the boundaries, we come up with the development program, we come up with the financial plan, all of which we have done. Then we go to the selectmen, who authorize a warrant to go to town meeting, which, if approved, then goes to the state of Maine and is reviewed by the DECD commissioner. So we're at the middle ground. We're at municipal approval. That's what we're working on right now. Now, TIFs are not unique to Boothbay. Like I just mentioned, we have two TIFs. We'll be proposing the third one. TIF number 1 is Hodgson Yachts, enacted in 2000. 20-year term, has a 75% credit enhancement agreement. So 75% of the TIF fund is then returned back to the property developer. Washburn and Doughty is TIF number 2, enacted in 2009, a result of the big fire, I think. I wasn't here then. That's a 20-year term, also with a 75% credit enhancement agreement. TIF number 3, we're going to name the Boothbay Village and Industrial Park. Obviously proposed this year. We're going to say this is a 30-year term, and there is no credit enhancement agreement. So essentially, the entire TIF fund goes into the town's pot. Now we're going to tackle a major project, and the major project has shared interests, lots of shared interests. The partners in the project are the Town of Boothbay, Maine Department of Transportation, and the Boothbay Harbor Country Club. And you'll see as we talk about the project that is up there, and I'll have up here in a second, our shared interest is we've identified in the Route 27 corridor study that the Boothbay common area is a transportation nightmare. We've had fatal incidences in that area. But we still want to retain the traditional use of the Boothbay Common. It's a very valuable resource. And it's also what we identify as our village area, which I think we would like to see developed as a village as we move forward. The Maine Department of Transportation is also cognizant of the Route 27 corridor study, and they know that this is a seasonal traffic hub. I think they dislike the traffic patterns right out here as much as we dislike them. Well, we're going to throw in a new curveball. A Boothbay Harbor Country Club has some mandated traffic control measures that they need to put in order to open up their entrance in the fashion that they want to do. So what they're saying is, we want to turn in a specific location. MDOT says you have to do X, Y, and Z in order to not disturb the traffic patterns. So we've come up with this idea of a TIF, and this TIF is pretty neat. It's called the Boothbay Village and Industrial Park TIF. It's huge. It's 272 acres. The OAV, the original assessed value, is about $16 million. We expect approximately $22 million in projected taxable investment in the TIF district at a minimum. There is no guaranteed credit enhancement agreement, which you're going to find out that people associate TIF and actually incorrectly associate TIF and credit enhancement agreement. They think they're the same thing. A TIF can have a credit enhancement agreement, but it doesn't necessarily have to. And a lot of people will think a credit enhancement agreement is a kickback on taxes, which in some cases it is, in order to get a business to locate. We're not talking about a credit enhancement agreement with this TIF. And we have a strong need to upgrade public infrastructure within the TIF boundaries. So this is the TIF as we've drawn it up. And you can see we literally have drawn an imaginary line on the town. The Boothbay town office is here, the industrial park is up here, the country club is here. We've drawn the TIF around the new development. It goes up Route 27 and it captures the industrial park. Now we've done that on purpose for a lot of reasons that I'll explain here. And now that's not the official representation of the TIF, that's me playing on Google Earth. The official representation of the TIF is much more specific, and map and lots are listed in the development program. So what can you do with the TIF? Authorized uses of TIF revenue. We have this pot of money, the TIF money's going in there. You can do improvements to roads, sidewalks, parking areas in the district. You can do construction of sewer and water lines and related facilities in the district and that serve the district. And you saw our district is huge. You can pay for economic development director or economic development plan and studies with that money. And you can pay for the administrative expenses associated with the district. The district pays for itself. Creates a few funding mechanisms when you create a TIF. The first one that you're going to see that we're going to take advantage of is a municipal bond. You can use a TIF district and TIF funds to pay off a bond. And that's what we're going to propose, is to borrow money and pay for it with the revenues we'll receive from the TIF district. Also, credit enhancements. We said that there is no guaranteed credit enhancement associated with this TIF, and there is not. But the imaginative thing that the Selectmen have done with this TIF district is they've reserved the right for a credit enhancement agreement in the future. And essentially, if they can use that as an economic development tool to recruit businesses to locate within the TIF district. And you'll see the TIF district is drawn in a fashion that it encompasses our major commercial areas of the town of Boothbay. So not only do they have leverage to bring people in, but they're also pointing those businesses in the areas that the town has already said we would like commercial business. Now, municipal economic development is another mechanism that you have there. You can use the TIF to do general economic development in the town. It doesn't have to be focused on the district. So all of these funds can then be used in imaginative ways to do more economic development within the town. Few fun facts about this TIF. I just know everybody wants to see the dollar signs. So the original assessed value is $13,605,000. And actually, I think there's a typo. I think it's like $16 million. I'm sorry. But you can see that there's a substantial increased assessed value, $21 million plus. What that equates to at the maximum time of assessed value is $179,239 in new taxes. So that goes into the TIF revenue pot. After the 30-year term of the TIF, that comes up to $4.7 million. You can do a lot with $4.7 million.
Jim, I think everybody needs to understand is that $179,000 is at today's mill rate.
Yes.
As the mill rate increases, that dollar amount increases
Right.
as well.
There's a lot of things, because obviously we don't know what's going to happen in 30 years, that we have to put into the TIF plan are estimates, and one of those is the mill rate. One of those is the assessed value. We've had a very good working relationship with the developer, and we think that the value that they've given us is probably true. But if they overdevelop and put more money in there, that there's more value and the TIF gets bigger. So there's a lot of things that could change, and over the life of a TIF often do. So let me see if I can show you. This is the plan that we want to use the TIF to work with. Now I can tell you that the original discussion and the original motivation that the selectmen had in talking about a TIF with a development area is always been water and sewer heading north. We always think that's always been a priority for us. But obviously when you sit down at the table, you have to compromise and you have to talk and discuss. And we ended up settling on something that we think is a priority that the town needs to take under advisement, but is not water and sewer heading north, but that we still have some money that we could probably use for that function. So what you're looking at is what we're calling the Boothbay Village Improvement Plan. The town office is here. Here's the monument, the Boothbay Common, so hopefully everybody is positioned correctly. In order to locate the entrance to the country club here, they have to do some improvements to the transportation, because you're going to have a lot more traffic in this area turning off this way. We already have a turn on the country club road. So you can see, and when I stand too close, it's hard to see. And there's another model floating around here. We're going to make sure that this is readily available for everybody to see. There's medians.
Dan's making copies now.
Okay. There's medians, there's turn lanes, all going up to this match line that we put in here. This is what the Boothbay Harbor Country Club has to do in order to meet the standards that MDOT says they have to meet. Well, you can see if they've gone this far, why don't we fix the rest of the transportation issues that we have in the village? So we've taken it upon ourselves to draw up a, once again, preliminary drawing of what could be done in this area. Essentially, probably the focal points are going to be parking on the inside of the common, a rotary, more medians, and then resituating the entrance to the municipal offices to be completely across the street from Common Drive. All of these things start lining up traffic in a fashion that we think would be advantageous. But once again, this is a preliminary drawing, and if people go to the polls to vote on the TIF and or the bond question, to know that there's still lots of drawing, lots of thinking, and lots of work to be done in order to make this the perfect plan. But we think this is a good start. So how do we pay for that? That's article number 3, a $2.5 million bond. Project costs for this are estimated to cost less than $2 million for the town's specific share. We are going to target Maine DOT Municipal Partnership Initiative funds, which is part of the other reason you're going to be at the polls on November 5th. You're going to be voting on a $100 million transportation bond that the state's going to do. We're going to ask them for a piece of that to do this project. Also, we're going to target Maine DECD, public infrastructure funds. So the $2.5 million that we're asking to borrow, we may not use all of it. We may fund a lot of that with other funding sources, but it's best to prepare that we have the leverage to be able to do those things. So we're requesting this $2.5 million bond from town meeting. The term of the bond will be 20 years. The total cost of the bond, and I know if you guys own a house and you look at how much you actually pay for your house, it hurts. But with interest over the life of the loan, $3.5 million. Now the greatest part of this, and I think the part that everybody's the most proud of, is that the TIF revenues will cover 100% of the bond, plus about $1.2 million. And then another point that I put on here is the town is wrapping up its last piece of debt in this next budget plan. We will be debt-free after next year, except for this time. And then another boastful part. This is a TIF unlike any other. We modeled this after the Cumberland Master TIF, which is the only TIF in the state of Maine designed in the way it's designed. And now why we're saying it's a master TIF is we didn't just surround the area expected to be developed. We went much further, hoping that we could stimulate more development. And that's why it's important for the board to have the authority to do those credit enhancement agreements and line themselves up for possible location or relocation of business. It gives us a tremendous amount of opportunity. TIF revenues pay for infrastructure in commercial areas. And I know we've gotten this very important discussion in the comprehensive plan and amongst the planning board. Where should development happen? Well, we're focusing on areas that we've already said we want development to happen. This is not development on shoreline property. This is development in the heart and center of the town of Boothbay, where we've already said those are our commercial areas. The credit enhancement agreements at a future date is, you don't see that very often. And if you look at any other TIF, you're going to find out that usually developers are saying, give me back a piece of the pie in order for me to do this. We're not doing that in this case. But that leverage to do it at a future date is really important. It gives these selectmen an economic development advantage that is unlike any other. Now the other funds, that we said there's $1.2 million that's not going to be used on the bond. Just a little brainstorming up on the bullet points. Water source preservation at Adams Pond goes along the TIF district. That's eligible. Village improvements, that's eligible. Studies and surveys that meet economic development goals. I think we're always talking about how do we get from here to there. Well, now we have a funding source to pay for those things. TIF funds, these are interesting tidbits. TIF funds can be transferred to other TIFs. We have TIFs in East Boothbay. If the need ever arose, we could transfer with the permission of DECD. In worst case scenario, and I'm not sure DECD likes me talking about this, but if you don't use the money at the end of the TIF, you can return it back to the general fund. I think you have to go back to DECD for that permissions. Another point that I put on here, and this is kind of a fan favorite for me, is you quite possibly could establish a revolving loan fund for small business improvement that the town could be in charge of. You could. Now those are all in the sky. The selectmen have a lot of decisions to make over the time, but I want everybody to understand the potential that is there in the TIF district. But the most important things that are TIFs are complicated, very complicated. And if you saw the 35-page development program that we're going to put out for people to review, that the selectmen have reviewed, it's very complicated. And if anybody understands it at first passing, they're much smarter than me, because it took me forever to come up to this. But we're going to go on an education campaign that the selectmen are going to dictate. We're going to try to inform people about questions 2 and 3. Any questions?
Jim, going back to the map, can we turn that back on for a second?
Yeah. The TIF district map?
TIF district map, yeah. The Google Earth one. And I have follow-up questions. There it is.
I hit from the beginning, didn't I?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If I'm looking at the boundary right, it all stays on one side of Route 27, is that correct?
That's correct.
Why don't we go to include a piece on the other side of Route 27 for some of the businesses that are there? And this is part of my follow-up question. There are businesses on the other side that may at some time want to come into the industrial park and get the benefits of the TIF there. Also, when looking at the industrial park, there's also 2 large pieces of property that are not in the industrial park that may want to join the industrial park. So I assume they could be incorporated into the TIF when they join that. But there are also some other businesses on the other side of Route 27 that may or may not want to be in the industrial park that could probably benefit both the town and them from being in that district?
Really good questions. And then we'll start off with the first, that the TIF can only be so big. TIF has to be under 2% of the acreage of the town of Boothbay. So we actually had the TIF drawn out bigger, and we had to pare it back.
Okay,
This ends up being 1.9% of the town of Boothbay after we pared it back. So we had to say, where are our priorities? And we want the development has to be in there. And the priority has always been the industrial park and the Route 27 corridor stuff. Now that doesn't mean that we can't serve places that are on the boundaries of the TIF. If you can use TIF revenues if it serves the TIF district.
okay.
So
So if somebody who's on the opposite side of the road and wants to get into the industrial park, they could, since they're within the road boundary, they would be able to join the TIF.
yes,
Because
well,
that can be a great incentive.
it has to be an amendment to the TIF,
Which we'll have the authority to do.
which we'll have the authority to do.
But the authority's right here.
The authorities within the
It's
select.
it's in the vote.
Yes.
So we just simply amend the TIF. Let's say development happens here. I don't know who lives there, and if you're watching, I'm sorry. Development happens there, and it's not happening there. We can move it down there. We can make the industrial park its own TIF. There is, I mean, TIFs are great because they're really your imagination when you want to do economic development. They're essentially setting priorities on what you want to do with your town. Right now, we think we have captured the priorities. We may not have. And I think that if we haven't captured a priority and it comes up, I think that we've broken the ice to essentially change that TIF if we need to. Does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah.
We've kind of been handed the perfect case scenario for us. I mean, this is going to happen. North of that line on the maps that you have, north of that line is going to happen with or without our approval. That's got to happen. We've got the opportunity to do all of this at zero cost to us. It's going to fix up the common. I mean, we all know what it's like out here most of the time, and this monument's a nightmare any night at between 3 and 5 when people are getting out of work. All that gets cleaned up for free, for lack of a better term.
My take is if we don't take on debt, we're not doing anything.
And you can see,
Yeah.
if we
If we
stop
don't
doing
take
that-
on debt, we're dying.
Right, yeah.
But this is debt that cost us nothing.
Yeah.
This
That's
is
the-
free debt.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the perfect, that's like you telling me you're gonna buy me a car and you're gonna make the payments. I'm okay with that. Hold on.
Frank and I made it together.
But I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, we're getting a great project at zero cost to us.
No argument.
TIFs are highly successful throughout the state of Maine, throughout the country. You can see Maine is actually behind the rest of the state when it comes to how they adopt TIF laws, but getting more aggressive as the economy's gone down because municipalities only have so many things for leverage as far as attracting business.
Going back to the bond question again, by voting yes on the bond in November, that is by no way meaning that if we vote on, is it November 5th?
Yes.
That does not mean November 6th, we're going out and borrow $2.5 million.
Yeah.
But the problem we have is, on that same day, the state is voting on a $100 million transportation bond. So we want to get in line for that, and we have to have funding to get in line for that. So if we don't get the funding from the state, we may not use any.
If we don't get approved to borrow that,
Right.
then we can
We need
get
to
their
find-
matching funds.
Right, we need to find matching funds. We need to be in line with that, hence why we're asking for it. We may or may not, we may end up only needing 1.5 if Jim can go out and get the DECD grants and all that. We don't know. We just need that assurance, and the public has to trust us that we're not gonna go spend it unless we have the funding.
We're looking for the authority, but it is not by any means etched in stone that we're gonna do it unless everything else lines up. But we need to have the authority, so if everything does line up, we can pull the trigger immediately and try to get those funds. If not, we're gonna be so far behind the 8 ball that everybody else is gonna be out in front of us, we're gonna lose our funds.
And this map, I
So
mean,
we know we're doing this on the 11th hour, and we're trying to make people understand, we're not trying to drive it down your throat, we're not trying to sell you a bill of goods and not educate you. We just need authority to possibly do something, but it's by no means committing to anything at this point. Just
this
giving us the
map,
authority.
this map is not setting stone. I think Jim, earlier today when we met, brought up a great point, that if, come November, if the TIF district goes through and the bond issue goes through, I think our next step, I'm only speaking for myself now, but is to have some sort of a committee put together of local people from all different areas that can come up with ideas on how to develop this area around here to make it workable, that goes along with the Route 27 corridor study and sidewalk program, everything, and kind of blends it all together. I think it gets the public involved. I think it's a great idea.
And trust me, just in our meeting before here, we've already found things in this map that we don't necessarily like. So, I mean, it's just a sketch. It's very
It's a
preliminary.
starting point, yeah.
Exactly. But again, people come in here and see this, like, oh, we don't like that, I don't like. This is very much just to give you some kind of a concept of what we're looking to do, but there's all kinds of changes that could be possibly made.
No, it's exciting.
How do we educate people in the town to make them aware of questions 2 and 3?
Meeting after meeting after meeting, and hope we get people, we welcome people's questions and have them come.
Attack us on the street, I don't really care. I really do want to educate people, but we're not trying to blindside anybody, but we do realize we are hitting people literally at the 11th hour.
I think, Ryan plays a huge part in it too, being in the Register and Channel 7. Hopefully people come out to our meetings, and we're gonna try to have a public hearing.
We understand it's going to raise a lot of eyebrows, concerns, questions.
Hopefully people ask the
Yes.
questions they have to the correct people.
That-
This is, if people want to understand this, they need to come to Jim and get their questions answered right from the source.
Exactly.
We've been handed such a great
Everything's lining
opportunity.
up. I mean, the
Exactly.
moon and the stars are lining up.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, Ryan?
Yeah, I had a question. In order to designate that country club as a targeted TIF district, is that contingent on the fact that the voters need to approve that as a C3
No,
district?
has completely nothing to do with zoning districts. Matter of fact, the TIF, you can be so imaginative with the TIF that it can overlap several different zoning districts. It has nothing to do with
Zoning districts has nothing to do with any TIF.
It's completely assessed value. That's all it has to do.
In fact, the TIF will run through multiple zoning areas.
It'll be
Yes, it will.
essentially 3 zones.
One of the biggest thing that appeals to me is when you look at the build from now to whenever the golf course gets done up there, of $20 million of new taxable property, and you can shelter that from the county. We all know we pay a boatload of money to the county already. For 30 years, that $20-odd million is going to be sheltered in our state assessment and our county assessment, so we don't get hit with that money. That's $20 million of assessed revenue that they're not going to get.
It's kind of like having a health savings account. You can't touch this. It's off to the side.
And you can also plan for it. When it's coming to the point where the TIF's getting to the point of ending, you can start, planning ahead of what you're going to do with that new assessed value.
Brian, I guess the best way to answer your question is the TIF district that's being proposed is actually going to run through 4 districts.
4 districts.
The industrial park district, the C2 district, the C3 district, and the village
Just the
district.
village district.
Yeah.
It's going to be parts of all of those districts.
Frank?
What sort of impact will be felt for this whole project if the $100 million state bond doesn't go through?
Good question. And honestly, trying to predict those things is impossible. We're lining ourselves up for potential. We have a board of selectmen that thinks forwardly, and we're going to think about what is the best possible scenario. And when the worst comes up, we'll be ready for that too.
So the 2.5 million bond that's being proposed would cover it and possibly be reduced by the state bond if that goes through?
Yeah.
So it's not, so it doesn't hinge on that.
No.
It will just be
No.
enhanced.
No.
It does hinge.
No.
Yeah.
The $2.5
Matching grant.
million that the town would be asking for would cover our portion of the project. We'd be looking for the same type of matching funds from the state through DOT. So if we were to take out a full $2.5 million bond, we'd be asking the state for another $2.5 million on top of this matching
Will come out of
funds.
that.
But the beauty of the bond is that the selectmen, after they have the authority, do not have to act on
Right.
the bond if it's a bad deal for the town.
We're assuming, worst case scenario, that this whole project right here costs $5 million.
Okay.
That's what we're assuming. If it comes in less, that's that much less we have to borrow. We're planning for worst case scenario, hoping like crazy that Jim can go out and chase grants and stuff and make it so it's nowhere near the 2.5 million.
Right.
We're just asking for permission for the worst case scenario.
And the estimate's more like 4.
Yeah, it's 4.3, and I'm thinking to myself, I'll never find it on the paperwork, but it's about 4.3 is the estimate. So even if we get the 2.5 and they only come up with 2, theoretically, we still have enough to do the job. Or if they give us 2.5, maybe we can only take out a $2 million loan instead of a $2.5 million loan.
I mean, none of us want to see,
We're not trying to hurt the
nobody
town.
here wants to go in debt. There's no question about that. I mean, you'd be crazy. I mean, I'm sitting next to Chuck, which, I mean that as a compliment. He is very frugal with money, and this is not costing us any money. I can't stress that enough. If we do this correctly, it will be cost neutral, and what did you figure, 1.4, 1.2 million?
It's about 1.4 that we come out ahead in the long run after 30 years.
And I mean, so,
Over 30 years, you actually make money.
Right. Yeah, well, education's gonna be the key of it.
Yes.
Get the word out.
hopefully we can have a public hearing before every selectmen's meeting and kind of hope and get the public involved and have it on Channel 7 with Ryan.
How many public hearings, is there a law? You need 2?
The public hearings that we put in the schedule are the bare minimum of what we're going to do. The selectmen have already discussed in the executive session they want to go above and beyond that, so we'll find ways to fit in more. There will be the minimum public hearings are in that schedule every year.
I think I can speak for the whole board. I don't think there's a one of us here that's not excited about the idea. I mean, and to get a whole united board excited about asking for $2.5 million, that's saying something.
Isn't it, Douglas? Yes.
If, let's say, year 15, we were seeing significant development around the golf course, industrial park, would the TIF be extended?
Well, there's multiple ways. Once again, TIFs are as big as your imagination. You could reestablish this TIF. You see that a lot. You get towards the end of the TIF, and you create a TIF to replace the old TIF. That happens. Maybe the TIF doesn't make sense, and you reestablish a completely different TIF to eliminate this TIF. It's up to the town, and the town has multiple options in what they want to do.
And Ron was saying that we can amend this TIF as it stands right now, correct?
Yeah, I believe that's how he phrased it, is that if
And trust me, we're getting a tremendous education on TIFs ourselves. I'm not gonna try to, buffalo you and tell you I'm a TIF expert, because I'm not, but we have been getting educated tremendously over the past 6 weeks, 2 months. But it sounds as though, quite literally, that if Barry Sherman's property, I'm just using him, don't try to Barry, don't shoot me. All of a sudden, somebody wanted to come in and develop that, we could come here to this board and we could draw a line around them and we could add on. That's the way I've interpreted it so far, but I'm hesitant about speaking too much without Ron being
I
around.
thought I heard you can only use 2% of the area.
we would pull out a different piece. I mean, there's going to be a piece of this TIF that doesn't develop.
Okay.
We're creating the most potential that we can with the knowns that we have now. So there's going to be another property that's on the edge of the TIF that we're going to say, this is not doing anything. Let's re-go.
Traditionally, TIF district, like Jim said, with Hodgdon's and with Washburn and Darby, they've had a 75% credit enhancement agreement, which means if $10,000 is their tax, they get 75% of that, the other goes into the pot. This does not have that because part of that pays for this project. So, I mean, what's in it for Paul Coulomb? Are we doing this for him? Absolutely not. But what's in it for him is he gets that for paying his taxes. We get the rest of it for him paying his taxes. So we're just able to take the taxes that he's going to pay and pay for that project rather than have to go in the general fund. That's what the TIF allows us to do. It gives him a benefit. He's going to ask for zero money in return, no credit enhancement agreement to get this.
And realistically, maybe we could wait 20 years and MDOT would come in and do something with 27, but they're not gonna do anything around the common, they're not gonna do anything around the public buildings, they're not gonna do anything, this takes care of our needs, the local needs, and MDOT's needs, and Boothbay Harbor Country Club needs, all in one shot, all in one project, and we do it virtually debt-free. Yes, we go into debt, but we don't necessarily pay that debt out of high. I don't see how there's a negative there.
This isn't being driven by Paul Coulomb. I can't stress that enough. He didn't come to us and say, hey, can you do this? He was going to have to do north of where that line is regardless. That was going to have to happen whether we were part of it or not. This just kind of fell into our lap and said, geez, hey, if we did this, we could get this. And this is how it's kind of all fallen together, so.
And I'll tell everybody, Scout's honor, that we engaged Paul Coulomb. I went to him and his developer personally, and then we reported to the selectmen afterwards, and then it developed. So nobody has ever asked anything of the town. But we've come to this consensus project by sharing information.
And it works great for both parties. And we can say 3 parties now because MDOT may be lumped into this, but MDOT is kind of a third silent player. The Boothbay Harbor Country Club and the town of Boothbay are the sole or the primary players in this, and we all benefit from it.
And MDOT, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but when they've seen anything that looks like this, they were very excited about the project because they realize there's issues there.
We had a discussion with one of the deputy commissioners at MDOT about this project, and really to sum up some of what he said is that this is mandated, and this would be eligible for a development project. This is not mandated, but this would be eligible for a development project. Together, they make a really strong case for one of these development projects lumped up. The state would probably use this as one of their flagship projects to show how cooperation with the developer, with the town and the state can happen.
But it also allows you to tie in a number of projects. I mean, you're already working on a sidewalk project from Boothbay Harbor up through here to the Clifford Playground, and it'll allow you to tie it into that as well.
We took some liberties with this drawing, and you'll see if you get the bigger drawing or a digital copy, which we're going to try to make available. The sidewalk, which is a whole different project, which we expect funded in 2015, is right here. And crossing the street is similar fashion. But when we've added sidewalk in here, so we're trying to put together several visions all together. And now we go sit at the table with DOT and say, we're doing this project, let's lump them all together. Let's really make this one of those opportunities that the state, the town, and the developer can brag about.
Will these parking spaces around the corner be actually lined and designated through this project?
Absolutely.
But that'd make a big difference on Market Day.
Yeah, organizing and cleaning up this area is, with beautification, is going to add to the village feel here.
I have to say, one of the biggest sells for me on this, Stevie knows I'm cheap. One of the biggest sells for me is the fact that we could do this project at a 0 increase to our current mill rate. And it would help the traffic pattern around here immensely.
And it goes
Now,
with the
I'm still studying the project, don't get me wrong.
And it goes with
Not
the
totally
number.
sold.
So if the payment goes up, you know what I mean, it's gonna follow it, it's gonna be nothing but better for us.
Right.
As it goes on, it's not gonna get worse. Once the value's there, it's there.
But I do think it's the minor economic development programs that will spin out of this is that what the people are going to remember. This is just going to be another transportation improvement that 5 years after it's done, it's always been that way. We'll get used to it and we won't look upon it. But the spin-off programs that we could possibly do with that extra development money, I think we're always trying to find that extra penny to do a little bit more economic development, and now we've created a funding mechanism.
One thing I want to say too is I was kind of surprised. I mean, Dale, and I'll speak for myself, and you either agree or disagree with me that the few meetings that we've met with Paul Coombs' people, I expected to go in and not be bullied, but basically to say, hey, this is what we want. That wasn't the case at all. Right from the get-go, they have been super. They've been very receptive to what we had to say. And when Jim proposed the TIF district, they had no idea what it meant. And they looked into it, and they've been very agreeable with what we wanted to do, and it's been a pleasure. It really has. I mean, it's not been bullied at all. So.
Yeah, it's just candid conversations, and we all kind of leave a room after a discussion for a while, and you walk out of there with bigger and bigger and bigger ideas, and honestly, at least for me, every time I had any kind of communications with them all, I get more and more excited about the project because you can see these huge rewards that the town can benefit from with almost no cost, or if not zero cost entirely. And I mean, I don't know how anybody can not be excited about that, especially for the pure scope of the project. I mean, you're talking, I've never done the linear footage on it, but you're talking 2,000 or 3,000 feet of intersections, dividers, just vast improvement sidewalk, parking. It's pretty tremendous. I mean, I do projects much smaller scale usually than this, and I know what the cost is and I know what goes into them, but to have it all done at one shot is pretty amazing.
There'd be no more cars parking along 27 on that corner. Right out front here, actually, you know, when there's an event going on, there'd be no more parking there. There's gonna be a sidewalk, raised sidewalk there. They're not gonna be able to pull in and park like they do now. You're gonna be made to go around the other side of the common, which is gonna clean up 27 tremendously around the 4th of July and all the craft fairs and.
So is this thing bulletproof, or are there any obstacles that come along with it? Is the biggest obstacle the state bond not passing?
That's a large obstacle. You know, but once again, there are other funding mechanisms out there, and I think that what the selectmen have tried to do is create opportunity. So with these two questions, they've created a potential and lots of opportunity, and we could capitalize, and this could cost us a whole lot less than we think. Even if everything goes wrong, we're still in a pretty good position. I wouldn't say bulletproof, you're never bulletproof.
I think our biggest obstacle is going to be education and voters.
I mean, essentially, Paul Coulomb could not put $30 million in there, and then that makes a really big issue. But we're pretty sure that that's a safe gamble. So this is a safe project. You know, and then we've got to start selling people that are not recognizing the issues that are in this area on what they are. And if you look at traffic counts as Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens, it's more and more popular. This intersection gets worse. I envision if this rotary becomes the design that sticks, signage that says, you know, this way to Martyrs Island, Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens, as you see in every other rotary. This way, Boothbay Harbor, Bigelow Labs, East Boothbay. So it becomes that directional focal point that creates the center of town.
Jim, I think, without delving too deep into their plan, I think by spring, if I remember correctly, I mean, just to show what kind of money's being spent, I think we're gonna have, by spring, $7 or $8 million of added revenue of taxes by spring. I mean, so that shows you the kind of money that's going into that and the kind of money that's going forward in the next few years. I mean, there's big plans. I mean, Joe Gillardin did a big thing in the register.
Front page on the
Right.
country club?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
To show a lot of money going in there.
we expect in year one of the TIF, there will be almost $5 million of new value in that area. And this is not accounting for any new valuable that could possibly be built in the rest of the TIF.
And the original assessed value is just at the country club, or
The
what's
original
within
assessed value of the TIF district.
of the TIF district that encompasses that Route 27 corridor up through the farm? Okay.
Another good benefit of the TIF district as a whole is it will allow us to take that extra money above and beyond what we pay for paying off the bond. And some of that money could be used to get water and sewer up to the industrial park. It gives us another funding source for that as well. I don't want people to think that we've forgotten about the industrial park, because that's the farthest thing from the truth.
Well, Dale mentioned in the executive session, and I'm sorry I point you out, is that he says, what if people question that our largest project that we've been very vocal and public about is doing water and sewer heading north? What are they going to say when we reprioritize? And you know, it's a really good question, but I would counter the fact this is the whole reason why we started this discussion, is trying to find out funding for that. Then we ended up sitting down and finding out that's, even if this was perfect, it's not going to pay for 100% of that plan. So now we have to concede on some fronts. And then we found common ground and ended up tackling another one of those projects that I can tell you that there probably is no idea how we would ever fix this intersection with money available. I mean, people do not want, this is important, and it's in every single one of those Route 27 corridor studies and traffic pattern studies, but where are you going to come up with $4 million?
And not necessarily have to pay it back
Pay it back yourself,
out of your own
yeah.
pocket.
I can't stress enough how important it is for people with any questions to
Come to the
give
public
us, come
meetings.
to our meetings, stop us on the streets. I mean,
Come in
we're
and
all
see
pretty-
Jim.
We're all pretty accessible. I mean, the town manager's here daily. I think after tomorrow, all the town employees will be pretty well versed in it as well, I hope. So they'll have, answer the questions whether you agree with them or disagree with them. The only thing I ask is get the facts.
And I don't think it's been necessarily mentioned, but in this TIF district, if somebody, another small business that's already encapsulated in there, if they make a fairly substantial investment to their property, they can jump in and either be eligible for a credit enhancement as well. So if somebody up in the industrial park invests $500,000, do they do a $500,000 expansion to their facility, and they want to look for a credit enhancement to make it a little bit more easy to swallow for them to do that, that's something that we can do here at this table, correct?
Yes, and I spoke to, I don't know if he's gonna like this, that I say it out loud, but so what? I spoke to the Rhinell project manager that is doing the expansion, in charge of the entire expansion of Rhinell. We all know that that's the one that got away. So knowing that they're relocating to Brunswick or Wiscasset, I wanted to pick his brain and see what he thinks of this plan, and also test the waters. If we were doing this a year earlier or 2 years earlier, would we be in consideration? He thought this was outstanding. And he said that, you know, if they hadn't already shored up some of the relocation plans, they would be considering Boothbay. Well, I don't know if you've read on that, but that's 200 jobs. That's a large expansion. And that's, you know, that's the one that got away. If we had water and sewer in the industrial park and land in the industrial park that they could use, they may still be here. Those 200 jobs might be here right now.
Any more questions?
The irony is that's just question 2 and 3.
Oh, there's more?
Yes. So question 4 on the special town meeting warrant is, shall an ordinance entitled 2013 miscellaneous amendments to the zoning ordinance for the town of Boothbay be enacted as attachment A. These attachments, and you'll see attachment A is huge, is going to be out front for inspection, for people to look at. The planning board has put together a really good and really thoughtful amount of changes to the zoning ordinance, and that is what Article 4 is. They're going to have public hearings to come. Please stay tuned. Please be informed on what Article 4 is.
Do you know when your next one is, Frank?
26th is our next, is our second final
September
hearing
20,
on it.
September
And it's
26th? September 26th?
September 26th, yeah.
And you know, we can do the same with as we would with the TIF or the planning board, because it's a lot of changes. If we have to have additional information meetings and people want to be informed, we'll do that.
You know, that hearing is going to cover just Articles 4 and 5, but it would probably be prudent to have some representatives from the Selectmen at that meeting, because I'm certain questions about Articles 1 and 2 will come up whether we want them or not.
Article 5 is the citizen initiated ordinance change. So the exact wording is, shall a citizen initiated ordinance entitled 2013 Amendment to the Zoning Ordinance of the Town of Boothbay, amending the definitions of commercial fishing activities and maritime activities be enacted as shown in attachment B. This is probably locally more referred to as David Stimpson's petitioned article. That, if it isn't enough, is the special town meeting warrant. Any questions?
Just one thing that I think that we ought to make people aware of is the planning board went to great lengths in Article 4 to try to accommodate David Stimpson in Article 5. So that's why you folks voted, you recommend no against Article 5, because you feel you've addressed it in Article 4
Yeah.
correctly.
Yep, but if both of them pass for any reason, or, you know, whatever passes we live with no matter what.
Right.
But if both of them pass, there are stipulations in Article 4 that will still allow
Some
for
control.
some opportunities and some conditions for anybody wanting to do anything.
So the,
It still gives you a little control.
It gives us almost the same amount of control that we have right now, as far as conditions and whatnot, so it's, yeah. In fact, I had a discussion with Jim yesterday, I had a vehement discussion with Dan earlier today, and then Mike set me straight on something in the parking lot where I was missing something.
Yeah.
But that's why
I
we
bet
talk.
it did, that's right. Yeah.
So, we need to, as a board, make a recommendation whether we want to support Article 5 or not.
yes.
to do that with Article 4 as well.
Yeah, and I've-
Okay, yep, I understand.
I've inferred that I know the result. If I'm wrong on that, then we can just change it.
Okay, so do we want to address that now, guys?
I think we need to.
I'd make a motion that the Board of Selectmen recommend a yes vote on Article 4, and no vote on Article 5.
Second.
Seconded it, David.
Well,
Steve and
Dale or me, one or the other.
It don't matter.
It doesn't make any difference.
So the motion's to recommend a yes vote on Article 4 and a no vote on Article 5. Any discussion? All those in favor? Please vote.
Amen.
And the planning board has already voted on.
Yes, I see, I
recommendation,
see
so
that.
Yep.
So that's it for the warrant.
So then now, a motion to sign the warrant.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to sign the warrant for the November 5th, 2013 special town meeting. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Wow.
I'm impressed.
I was gonna say, I don't wanna have any discussion, but I do wanna thank the planning board, because I know they worked incredibly hard on it.
Yeah.
I did a lot of reading the other night.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed with what I saw, so I just wanna put it out there that I know they worked very, very hard.
I think it should be said
At
that
least 10 of those pages goes to
the planning board, the current planning board, and the planning board that has left us in the last month or two. I mean, I know they worked a lot in the last, I mean, you've been part of it for
There've
the
been
last year.
months of work on that. It wasn't something that's just happened
No.
over the last 2 months.
I just don't want to make it sound like we're overlooking that. I mean, you guys have worked hard. So.
I mean, to design, control, even if Article 5 goes through, there's a lot of work. It's a lot of,
And there's more coming up
Mhm.
with phosphorus and cell towers and other things.
I mean, going through, I sat through your first public meeting, and I think a great deal of time and effort went in to try to accommodate Mr. Stimson and his citizens petition with Article 4. That's why I support you guys and don't support the Article 5, only because Article 5 allows too much in the residential district at that point. I mean, you could do anything you want, as long as it's commercial maritime activities in a residential district. That would open up a nightmare for people in a residential
Yeah,
district.
and that
It goes
really,
beyond that, too.
Yeah,
It
yes.
goes special
Right.
residential village district.
Exactly.
everywhere.
Yeah.
yeah, it will
So-
not be not in my backyard.
Right.
It'll be in any backyard.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I put that out there. I mean, I showed up early thinking we were meeting, and we wasn't. It happened to be your public information hearing, so I got to sit through it, which was great, so.
I think the important part of what we achieved is they will be allowed to build both.
Right.
Through the home occupation.
Yep.
That's what we were trying to do,
Yeah.
make that happen.
I think you compromised.
Yeah,
and
with the conditions
yeah,
of home occupation.
I agree. I think it's a win-win, but, nothing else under the warrant. Any more public comment?
Wow.
Douglas?
Have you got in contact with Myron at all?
No, I purposely didn't put it
I think
on the agenda.
you better, because I've been told that it's abandoned,
You've been told what?
that it's been abandoned.
Pete's talked to Myron, but I can't say that I have anything new to give to the selectmen, so that's why
I
I'm
know somebody talked to Myron today, and he called me. He says he's washed his hands of it. It's not documented anymore, so it's, you know.
We took the documentation off.
Furthermore, if we're gonna move it, You're gonna have to do it soon before that thing gets more heavy and heavy and heavy.
Yeah. It
I
is.
did talk to one of the,
Because they're gonna have to put the airbags inside that thing, truck load it up.
I did talk to one of his family members, and they assured me that, it had been drained of all the fluids and stuff. That's my biggest concern is,
Right, yeah.
and that had been well salvaged, so.
We've also had some dialogue with Chuck Fuller, who says that he thinks it would actually be less expensive to take it apart right there. And I told Pete to look into that further, and that's why we didn't put it on the agenda tonight, is we'll have a little more information hopefully in the near future.
Well, the downside of taking it apart there is you gotta dispose of it. If you can get it out whole and put it somewhere where you can have a training burn for the fire department, that's the cheapest way to get rid of it.
You know, it's easier to pick apart if you get it ashore than it is out
Right.
there near the
But-
channel.
But you get it somewhere where you can burn it, and boy, that'd be a cheap way to get rid of it. It's all wood, I assume. I think it's the old wooden boat.
It doesn't burn.
You
very
one
well.
log, you one log, you one log, so.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's probably
It's
got
getting
wood.
heavier by the
I
day.
think, you know, my suggestion is that you get a hold of Myron and make sure that's what the case is, and then we should, because we shouldn't be waiting, because that's gonna be hard on hard for that to go in.
Well, my question is it our problem? Or is it the Coast Guard's problem? I don't, whose problem is it?
It's not just the Coast Guard,
Well,
it's not navigable waters.
As Dale said at our last meeting, it's a problem that's not gonna go away.
I
We have to
agree.
address it now rather than later.
Well, look at the ones that were moored off of Boothbay Harbor, they had to get rid of them themselves.
Yeah.
If you get into a bad
When it
weather
was
season this
moored, there was
winter,
moored out there,
it's probably gonna start to come apart.
you know.
I just don't wanna be driving across there someday and find it under the bridge or whatever, I just know it's gonna become a problem.
Yeah.
Whether or not we're gonna address it now or address it later.
Looks kinda neat right now, but that's
It's a tourist attraction twice a
true.
day.
You're right, yeah.
You know, well, it might be for you, but it isn't for me.
Yeah. I don't know, we walked down to see it sometimes.
Have you,
We'll get more information. I'll speak to Myron McClellan
Yeah.
myself.
Yes.
Maybe even have Pete come to our next meeting.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Come up with a game plan, maybe.
He's gonna contact Chuck. We're really interested in Chuck's feedback on this, Chuck Fuller, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're interested in his feedback, you know, honestly, we don't know everything there is about sunken boats. If you know more, let us know.
Yeah.
That's it. Review warrants and sign.
Someone,
Nope.
Public question.
Yeah.
Mike Tomka, Boothbay Harbor. Came late to hear the presentation, but is there anything that Boothbay Harbor can do, or that you'd like Boothbay Harbor to do to support this initiative?
I think there's nothing.
My opinion, is that, and I talked to Tom Wooden earlier today, he had heard through the grapevine that we were gonna discuss something tonight, wanted to know what he could find out. And I honestly think that this is of significant impact to Boothbay Harbor. And, you know, if it feeds into one of those information, you know, reach out to the public so people are educated, I'd like to present it to the Boothbay Harbor Selectmen so that they understand what we're doing up here. Essentially, it turns into almost a gateway project for Boothbay Harbor. And even though they're not in it, they should be privy or involved in what's going on.
The hotels and the restaurants in the harbor
I think
are
you'll-
gonna benefit from this
If-
in a big way.
You'd have to tell Tom you want to be on the agenda, because they don't take anything new
Yeah.
from the public unless you're on the agenda, I believe.
Unless you're.
Right, no, I'm
Hey, it's got-
really, I'm being serious.
It's gotten better. It's gotten
But
better.
in my-
Yeah, we just have to submit, we have to
Right,
submit
that's what I'm getting
agenda
at,
items.
right.
And actually, one of our selectmen said that he wanted to extend that right up to 5 o'clock before the meeting. So it's just an attempt to get some organization, which I certainly agree with. Michael, you spend some time with town office, you can put an agenda request in and
Sure.
get with Jim.
But let me have a one-on-one with Tom, and we'll see how they prescribe us going forward.
But we can speak now in the meetings.
wonderful. That's wonderful.
And you can't imagine how much that's increased attendance.
It was like Christmas.
You had what, 15 down there at the last meeting?
No, come on, there was 16, Chuck.
Good.
Come on, more than here.
it's true.
No, I thought that was good.
You can always come.
I'm not sure how welcome I would be.
You can help
As,
with my
as
guess.
welcome as Frank.
I'll make that a condition.
So that was harsh.
We digress. Chuck, that's it for public comment? Chuck made the motion and Dale seconded to review the warrants and sign them upon review. Discussion. All those in favor? And
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
all in favor?